Uraraka is the only one who can stop the nation-destroying threat of Toga's new power, and it all depends on her quirk awakening. We'll be exploring Uraraka's quirk, her developed fighting style, and her growth potential in this final arc of the series. Uraraka's fighting style. It's important to point out that Uraraka has martial arts training, something that many of her classmates haven't done. She is the only person in Class 1A, and maybe the only person in the whole group of first years who knows how to fight without using a quirk. In a world where people have superpowers, basic martial arts might seem like a boring skill, but for Uraraka, it changes everything. Since her quirk is best at long-range combat, she was kind of lacking in terms of close-range offensive moves. She had no way to defend herself. Luckily, her internship with the battle hero Gunhead helped her fill in those blind spots. Gunhead martial arts uses almost the same moves as a real-world self-defense class. Designed for close combat, it focuses on taking down an opponent and taking away any weapons they might have. Since most big-time bad guys don't carry regular weapons, this course might seem like a waste of time. But Himiko Toga is known for having a lot of weapons and being obsessed with Uraraka. If they had met before Uraraka's internship with Gunhead, she would have been in trouble because she didn't know how to fight close up or with her hands. Even though Toga got away and stole a little bit of blood, Uraraka did pin her for long enough for her to win according to WWE rules. Unfortunately, this fight wasn't a pro wrestling match, so it's still a loss. Gunhead martial arts is useful on its own, but it can also be used with Uraraka's quirk, Zero Gravity, to make it even more useful. This alone has helped to make her one of the most versatile fighters, at least among the students. With the anti-gravity part of her quirk, the hits she can land on her opponent are even more devastating. A fall from a few feet in the air is much more painful and damaging in a fight than a normal body slam to the ground. Gravity Plus is a hybrid move that hasn't been used much, which is a shame because it can be used in a lot of different ways. We've only seen it used once when Uraraka fought off a trigger smuggler and it put him out of commission. Gravity Plus worked well as both defense and offense in this battle, so there are a lot of ways it could be used in more serious fights. For example, it could help you fight off a lot of low-level criminals, henchmen, or even Nomu in the right situation. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but if Uraraka can improve her quirk even more, Gravity Plus could be a key move against even bigger enemies if she can get better at it. But what's even bigger and much more crucial than that is subscribing to Plot Armor with notifications on. Uraraka's quirk, Zero Gravity. Uraraka is best known for her quirk Zero Gravity. This is an emitter quirk, which is the most common type of superpower in the series and one of the easiest to understand. If she touches something with her fingertips, it will float. If she touches her fingertips together, the thing will fall. In its basic form, this power is good for defense because if she gets close enough, she can move obstacles and drop them on her opponents. If she surprises an opponent, she can also pick them up and drop them, which can stun or confuse them. Uraraka has limited offensive power because she has to touch her opponent to use her quirk. Anyone with a power that can put distance between them and Uraraka is a much tougher opponent. It's one reason why she always fails to capture a certain League of Villains member. Additionally, she has little control over where the objects go once they're floating in the air. She can make them go up and down, but she can't move them around on purpose, so she can't really control where they land. It's just not in the scope of her quirk to move the thing she's floated. Still, Uraraka can easily make blockades or bury her opponents in rubble if she plans ahead and is in a particularly cruel mood. As you might guess, this style of attack isn't very reliable because it depends on her opponent being in a place where they can't get away, like in an arena. It worked great in situations like the provisional license exam, but the strategy isn't used very often because most battles don't happen in controlled spaces. There are a few special moves Uraraka developed within her first semester at UA. As the name suggests, skill release takes away the anti-gravity effect she puts on anything she touched. This is a pretty interesting skill, especially since it turns off her quirk. But dropping things that are floating several feet in the air can cause a lot of damage. Zero Gravity is one of the very few quirks that can be turned off on purpose. Many of the other emitter quirks we've seen keep going until the person's body can't take it anymore. But Uraraka can stop her quirk when she wants to, so she doesn't overwork herself. She developed two other basic moves as well once she started training at UA. The first is Comet Home Run, which she used during the battle trial. She uses Zero Gravity on a large object like a pillar and some rubble, which she then swings at an opponent like a baseball bat and ball. It's a clever and very effective way for her to deal with not being able to control floating objects. And it shows that she was a great athlete even before she learned martial arts. Meteor Storm is her second move, and it was almost enough to beat the winner of the sports festival, Bakugo. For this one, Uraraka has to quickly touch a lot of rubble, then use her quirk to make a storm of it fall on her opponent. She used these moves on Bakugo and Ida, two of the strongest and most well-rounded students in her grade. This shows just how much raw potential her power has, even with the minimal training she had until this point. One thing to remember is that all of these need quick thinking and creativity. So many of these moves require Uraraka to keep an eye on what's going on around her so she can get enough debris and other projectiles to activate and throw at her opponents. This isn't part of her quirk, but it's important to point out because it makes her a great hero in training. She's very perceptive. In her early days at UA, Uraraka had two main obstacles to overcome with her quirk. First, it was a weight limit that keeps her from lifting an unlimited number of things. The most she can lift is about 3 tons, which is a lot, but it does serve as a limit. Uraraka can't stop the thing she's in charge of from moving, and it gets harder and harder for her to keep anything in the air as it gets heavier. Still, the fact that she can basically handle 3 elephants in the air at any given moment is pretty cool. The second obstacle is that messing with anti-gravity does a number on Uraraka's inner ear. In the past, she felt very sick when she used her quirk for more than a few seconds or tried to float. This stopped her from using zero gravity on herself and set an unofficial limit on how long she can have her quirk active. When she uses her quirk, especially on herself, it has the same effect as when astronauts use their anti-gravity machines for long periods of time. But she has been able to control this side effect by training a lot in a big hamster ball during the forced training arc and making changes to her hero costume. Uraraka no longer gets sick so easily because she has trained her inner ear canal to handle zero gravity in gradually increasing amounts. She still gets a little sick when overexerting herself, but it's much more bearable these days. Uraraka's quirk training. After the forced training arc, Uraraka gets a lot of power-ups and methods to mitigate the side effects of her quirk. Many of these come from her new suit, like the equipment in her helmet that keeps her inner ear from getting too stimulated, the pressure points in her neck that keep her from getting headaches, and the shock-absorbing cushions in her feet that keep her legs from breaking if she falls from a high place. Usually we wouldn't talk about suit upgrades when talking about a character's quirk because they don't usually boost power in a significant way. But these upgrades do work to make sure that Uraraka can use zero gravity for a long time. Together with her training, most of Uraraka's physical side effects have been much less severe. Her suit upgrades are second only to Deku's in terms of how well they balance out the weaknesses of her quirks. Uraraka is becoming one of the most well-rounded first years thanks to her new suit and her training in martial arts. Uraraka now has several special moves thanks to more training and 2 internships. Her first duo move, METEOR for Frotskis, was developed during her second internship with the dragon hero Ryukyu. Uraraka can do some pretty impressive things when she works with another student or hero whose strengths make up for the weaknesses of her quirk. With the help of Froppy's frog-like tongue, the floating clumps of debris are shot at opponents at high speeds, making the hit more accurate and do more damage. This is an upgrade to Meteor Storm. When Uraraka and Sue work together, they add 2 benefits to a well-known and effective move. With zero gravity, aim is up to chance, so Uraraka has to pay more attention and time when she wants to drop something on her intended target. The move is much more likely to cause serious damage because Sue actually launches debris instead of just letting it fall. This gives the object better aim and speed. Sue and Uraraka have powers that, in a very unexpected way, work very well together. This paid off when they were able to defeat 2 huge villains on the spot. Zero gravity is definitely a quirk that plays well with others. Anti-gravity can give you more height, which can increase your range, or if you're using projectiles, do more damage to an enemy. Uraraka has all the tools she needs to be a powerhouse. She just needs someone to help her aim floating objects at their targets. The other move Uraraka has gained is Zero Satellites. Like her other special moves, this one needs her to be very aware of her surroundings and a lot of rubble. She turns on zero gravity on the objects around her, then pulls out the grappling hooks on her suit and throws them at her opponents. It's almost like a flail of rocks, and anyone who gets hit by it will definitely get hurt. So far, the only victim of Zero Satellites has been Toga, who's Uraraka's opposite in terms of personality and fighting skills. Up until now, Uraraka has always been at a disadvantage when fighting Toga because zero gravity puts her in a good position to drink blood from her opponent. Even though she knows gunhead martial arts, it is dangerous for her to get close to Toga's knife or syringe machine. Since she was still obsessed with Uraraka, the hero in training had to find a way to keep Toga at more than arm's length and still hit her. Zero Satellites is the perfect solution. Swinging around household objects at high speeds is a surefire way to hurt someone, and Uraraka is far enough away from the danger. With Sue's help, she was able to get away from Toga again, but not before hitting her a few times. She has definitely been improving her skills enough to become a real threat to Toga since their first fight. Even though her quirk has some limitations, she has found many ways to use it to her advantage. It'll be interesting to see how she uses her environment to improve her quirk and go beyond what it can do. And as long as we're talking about the Paranormal Liberation front, it's important to note how much stronger Uraraka has become. Even though her only big battle was with Toga, she had a very important job. She had to get civilians out of danger and clean up after buildings that had been destroyed. Even though it's not as exciting as what her friends who were fighting with the pro heroes were doing, it's another sign of how stable her powers have become. She stepped up to make sure the civilians were safe and not in danger. Even in the middle of a war, she was able to handle her quirk well and do many things at once. Even though it would have been cool to see her use her powers in what was arguably the most action-packed arc to date, it was interesting to see how her powers have changed from a more practical angle. Compared to the other disasters where UA students were sent, it's clear that Uraraka has gotten good enough at zero gravity to possibly be on a rescue team. Her quirk has become so useful in a vast variety of situations. Uraraka's Quirk Awakening. There is a lot of potential for Uraraka and zero gravity. Her quirk is now balanced enough that it can be used in many ways during and after battles. But there's definitely still room for improvement. For example, she hasn't been in a fight where she can use her skills in hand-to-hand combat. Uraraka hasn't had the chance to shine in a big melee fight like some of her other classmates. She's had big fights with Toga, but she's been on the sidelines during the bigger, more destructive fights. But the way the final arc is going now, it is very likely that Uraraka will finally get her chance to shine in battle very soon. Uraraka is one of the very few students who knows how to combine hand-to-hand combat with her quirk. It's not very exciting to give her so much potential and then only have her use it on a faceless bad guy. So I'm hoping that in the final moments of the series, she'll use gunhead martial arts and gravity plus a lot more. The small group of 1A students are stuck between Sadman's Parade and the increasingly dangerous Gunga Mountain battlefield. This is a rough situation, but one that could end up being her ultimate battle against Toga. Even though it seems like the 1A students are at a big disadvantage right now, with the clones and flame walls coming at them, this is where Uraraka's skills can shine. Since the twice clones move as a group, it'll be easier to use and turn off zero gravity in quick succession. This could let her switch between using her quirk to clear a path and using gravity plus to stun. I'm gonna assume that a single twice clone wouldn't weigh more than 180 pounds. Uraraka can hold up to 3 tons of weight, so she can hold onto about 33 clones at once. Of course, there are thousands of twice clones in the Sadman's Parade, so the 33 clone cap might sound useless, but it's important to remember that Uraraka is not alone. The small group she has already decided that divide and conquer won't work, so it makes sense that a tag team approach might be the best way to go. Uraraka could lead them through the horde by floating clones to clear a path. Her friends could then destroy the clones, consistently rotating space within Uraraka's weight limit. Uraraka and Tsu may even have more combination moves by now. This would be a great time for Uraraka to show off a new set of close combat skills. We haven't really seen her use gunhead martial arts much because she tends to get left out of fights where it would be useful. But in her current situation, she has the best chance of beating Toga. Even though Gang Orca, a real hero, was stuck on the island with them, she took on a leadership role. Toga will still be hard to beat because different strategies have different risks and rewards, so Uraraka will have to play on the fly. She can choose to play it safe and use zero satellites, but risk letting Toga escape again. The riskier option would be getting close and trying to subdue her. But again, getting close to Toga is a huge risk that has never paid off for Uraraka in the past. But she has gotten much stronger and better at fighting with her hands since the last time she tried to fight close with Toga. If she can get close to Toga and keep her defenses up, Gravity Plus would be a huge help in beating and taking her down for good. If she doesn't succeed, Toga might be able to get her blood again. And if Uraraka wins, it would be a satisfying end to one of My Hero Academia's longest running rivalries. Ochako Uraraka has become one of the best all-around fighters among UA first years, ability to adapt to new battle situations, and a few suit upgrades. It's almost hard to believe she was once held back by a small weight limit and inability to float herself. Without the built-in failsafe of skill release, she would have been a much weaker candidate among the UA students. Now her quirk doesn't hold her back as much, and she can fight well with her hands. Even though she hasn't been a big focus for the last few arcs, she has been in a few battles here and there. Every one of our main 1A cast has received some sort of major quirk upgrade for this final arc, so there's no way that the main girl, Uraraka, who actually has her own dedicated villain, unlike a certain main rival, is going to end the series without a significant display of power. It's only a matter of time. But check out our 6 stages of Toga video to see exactly what she's up against.